We begin by telling you that President Bola Tinubu has returned to Abuja after 3 weeks, nearly 3 weeks. The Nigerian leader was welcomed by his Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, and other top security officials. On Tuesday, Tinubu attended the inauguration ceremony of Ghanaian President John Mahama in Accra before returning to Nigeria. During his time away, Tinubu also visited Enugu State. His return comes as the Senate continues deliberations on the 2025 Appropriation Bill, which he presented 3 weeks ago, and the contentious Tax Reforms Bill. And out of security matters, the Nigeria police have announced that the cybercrime unit recovered over 8 billion naira and $115,000 in 2024. Police spokesperson Olumuyiwa Adejobi made this known to journalists, saying strategic operations by the unit led to the arrest and prosecution of 751 cybercriminals. Adejobi added that the recovered funds were returned to victims of cybercrime, demonstrating the force's commitment to protecting citizens and ensuring justice for those affected by fraud. The unit also recovered 685 devices used in cybercrime, including 467 mobile phones, 137 laptops and computers, 46 routers, 4 servers, 1 drone, and 4 Starlink devices. In the meantime, the Nigeria Police Force says that it has commenced investigation into the tragic incident which unfolded at the Kuchibui District Obwari Area Council in Abuja, where an explosion rocked the school premises on Monday. Eyewitnesses say several persons were affected, with the police confirming 2 dead. Our correspondent Joshua Marai visited the community to assess the situation on ground and filed in this report.
Blood stains on eaten soybean meal and misplaced footwear tell the story of this tragedy. The explosion rocked the Sani Othman Islamia School in the Kuchibui district at Bari Area Council in Abuja. The incident, which is the first of its kind in the community, claimed the lives of 2 students and left others injured.
Yesterday, around 11 to 12, I dey come back for fun. As I do the road, I hear Sani for gun. I don't know whether now gone, whether now watching. I even to say now this quarry people they are bring stone. I just say then. I rush corn. As I rush corn, I can't reach main road. I can't see outside people they run to go. I must say I rush go there. I can't see people from the ground.
Yeah, na fish man. When they are so mama la marana. I tell me come on. I've been there for them. The
district head of the community, who was a victim of abduction by kidnappers about 2 years ago, reacted to the incident.
I want to tell the government, I want to tell all world, say, this Alimajiri, I'm not going to allow them to enter this my community again. The thing don't stop. We're not going to hear anything Alimajiri again for this my community. I want to beg government to see to get police station for this our community.
The Assistant Inspector General of Police in charge of Zone 7 and the FCT Commissioner of Police visited the scene also to assess the situation.
This is not bomb blast. I cannot say this is bomb blast at all, because we are still investigating. This school was built for this nomadic education by the federal government of Nigeria, as it then was. So you can see some people has converted it to an Islamic school.
As investigations continue, the community remains on edge, hoping for swift action to prevent such tragedies in the future. Authorities are calling for increased vigilance and cooperation from the public to ensure safety of all residents. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
Away from security matters, the federal government has commenced payment of long overdue entitlements to retired military personnel following repeated protests. The veterans who had gathered at the Ministry of Finance headquarters in Abuja on Tuesday began receiving payment alerts while still at the protest site. They subsequently dismantled the canopies and chairs blocking the ministry's entrance and began leaving the area. The retirees had barricaded the entrance as early as 7 a.m. on Tuesday, demanding full payment of their entitlements. This latest protest followed a similar demonstration in December when they shut down the ministry over unpaid claims. Let's now shift our focus to appropriations. The defense of the 2025 budget estimates by ministries, departments and agencies before various House committees failed to commence on Tuesday as scheduled. As of about 5 p.m. on Tuesday, there was no sign of any activity at the various committee rooms in the House where the budget defense was expected to take place. A tour of the committee rooms showed an empty House, while the National Assembly complex appeared unusually quiet and devoid of its typical bustle. The reason for the delay remains unclear, but it is speculated that the absence of most members of the House, who may still be observing the Christmas and New Year holidays, could be a contributing factor. The House is expected to resume plenary on Tuesday, January 14, 2025. Let's also tell you that the Lagos State House of Assembly has approved a total budget of 3.37 trillion naira for the 2025 fiscal year. The approval followed the presentation of a report by the chairman of the Joint Committee on Appropriation and Finance, Sir Adulumo, during Monday's plenary session. The budget allocates 1.3 trillion naira for recurrent expenditure and 2.07 trillion naira for capital projects covering the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025. Now we bring you a timeline of the budget passage and key insights into the Lagos 2025 budget compiled by News Central Sagir Ibrahim.
The 2025 Lagos budget, christened the Budget of Sustainability by the state government, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu presented the initial proposal to the Lagos State House of Assembly on the 21st of November 2024, with a total figure of 3.005 trillion naira. The budget is structured around 5 key pillars of infrastructure sustainability, economic diversification, social inclusion and human capital development, environmental sustainability, and good governance and institutional reforms. After deliberations and adjustments, the Lagos State House of Assembly approved a revised budget of 3.367 trillion naira on the 6th of January 2025, marking an increase of 362 billion naira from the initial proposal. Key projects include the ambitious Green Line Rail Project, a 68-kilometer rail line connecting Marina to the Lekki Free Trade Zone. Other priorities include investments in tourism, infrastructure, completion of road projects, and fostering economic growth through creative arts, agriculture, and industry. Over the years, Lagos State has steadily increased its budget to meet growing infrastructural and social development needs. In the year 2020, with a budget of 1.168 trillion naira, capital expenditure constituted 62%, with notable allocations to education at 108.3 billion naira, health at 97.262 billion, and security gulping 37.064 billion. In the year 2021, with a budget of 1.163 trillion naira, capital to recurrent ratio remained at 60-40, with increased funding for education at 146.9 billion, and health with 106.087 billion. In the year 2022, the budget increased to 1.758 trillion, where capital expenditure rose to 66%, with strong focus on infrastructure gulping 199.95 billion naira and security at 70.716 billion. In the year 2023, with a budget of 1.768 trillion, health received 149.061 billion and security at 86.816 billion, though infrastructure spending dipped to 148.564 billion. In the year 2024, with a budgetary allocation of 2.26 trillion naira, capital expenditure accounted for 54.5%, with substantial allocations to education at 155 billion naira and health at 156 billion. The 3.37 trillion naira budget for 2025 represents a historic high, reflecting a 49% increase from 2024. Now, capital expenditure increased to 2.071 trillion, a 61.5% increase, while recurrent expenditure rose to 1.296 trillion, representing a 38.5% increase. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu emphasized that the budget of sustainability aims to drive economic growth through strategic investment in infrastructure, human capital, and key sectors. The governor is expected to give his final assent in the coming days. In Lagos, Sagir Ibrahim for News Central.
We're going on a short break now. When we return, Center for Disease Control assures Nigeria is a moderate risk of HMPV. We'll bring you the details in a short while. Join us again. Many thanks for staying with us. Let's talk health now. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control says the country is at moderate risk for human metapneumovirus in a public health advisory. The agency said the federal government is closely monitoring the outbreak of the virus and is taking safety measures to strengthen the country's preparedness and response capacity. The NCDC said it conducted a risk assessment of the HMPV in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Health and partners such as the World Health Organization, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the U.K. Health Security Agency. While there are claims in some quarters that the World Health Organization has declared HMPV a public health emergency of international concern, the agency described it as false and should be disregarded. So to discuss this more, we are joined by Dr. Adefolarin Opawoye. He's an infectious diseases consultant, Lagos University Teaching Hospital and Public Relations Officer, Nigerian Infectious Diseases Society. Thank you so much for joining us on the news, Dr. Opawoye.
Good being here.
So do you think that the HMPV is a moderate risk for Nigeria?
Well, the NCDC has declared it a moderate risk, so we're going to follow that. Remember that with public health emergencies, it's best to err on the side of caution. Even if you're going to be said to be overthinking it, it's better that way than to be underprepared. So because remember, this was what happened during COVID, that the world was caught unprepared, and that is definitely influencing the outlook on things now. So yeah, moderate is fair enough. It makes us getting ready without necessarily throwing our toys out of the pram. So that's just the best way to do it. Moderate risk is a fair enough classification.
All right, so what are the primary symptoms of the human metapneumovirus, and how can it be distinguished from other respiratory infections?
Okay, well, so the challenge with it is that it's really difficult for you to separate it from other respiratory viruses like your influenza, respiratory syncytial virus, other causes of cold. So it's just basically like common cold, meaning that people may start with some feeling unwell, which we call malaise. You may have fever, sore throat, some catarrh, some cough, and some body aches. So basically that's it. And, like I said, it's really difficult to distinguish it from other causes of similar illnesses. So it's not like they have really distinguishing features at the level of the clinical features. Now, you'll be able to test it at the lab and be able to distinguish it as a viral cause of an upper respiratory tract infection, viral pneumonia. Was really difficult to look at a patient and say, oh, this is HMPV and not RSV, and it's very, very difficult to do that clinically.
Okay, so then what are the safety measures and protocols you would expect to be put in place at Nigeria's international points of entry, at least to prevent the spread?
Well, so I think there's one thing that we need to put in context there. This is a virus that's been circulating for a long time, and hopefully, generally, we have quite a lot of immunity to it. If you look at the news coming out from China, which you really have to be careful how you take it, because China is never fully open. But in so much as what we know is that it's usually ages less than 14 that are really affected, mostly children, because they don't have immunity as strong as adults. So it's not like COVID, which was a new infection that spilled from animals, as at 2019, 2020, that we didn't have immunity stockpiled against it. This one, we are sort of like prepared to counter it in a way. Our bodies should be able to deal with it. So we're not going to start running around now doing a lot of things. Now we can do things out of abundance of caution, which is screening at our points of entry, temperature checks and all that. But remember that diseases don't move in isolation. The fact that we're looking at HMPV, that's the Human Metapneumovirus, doesn't mean that other diseases are on strike. So screening is always good, but at this point, there may not be a need for enhanced screening yet. But situation is being monitored closely from China. WHO is on it, other health agencies are on it. And when we need to escalate, then we're going to escalate as needed.
All right, so are there any vaccines or maybe any antiviral treatments available for this virus? And probably if there are research works being done to actually address the spread in the near future?
Well, I mean, there's always research going on in all of these things. And the challenge is that prior to now, it's not really been a cause of concern. I mean, this was a virus discovered in 2001. It's not been associated with a lot of mortality. So there's not really been a lot of focus on it. You know, maybe now there's going to be a lot more funding and research focus on it. But so far, we don't have any vaccines. There are no guaranteed treatments. Treatment is basically supportive, meaning that there are no direct antiviral agents that can work against it. But if you treat the symptoms, you treat the cough, you treat the catarrh, you treat the body aches and all that, most patients will get better, you know. So, but there's no direct treatment for it. There's no direct vaccine for it as at this time.
All right, Dr. Okpawe, before I let you go, we heard stories around the COVID-19 pandemic as at that time being a hoax, so to speak. How are we so sure that this HMPV virus is actually real?
Well, I mean, they said COVID would be a hoax. It turned out not to be one. We know this is real. We know there are outbreaks. What we're saying is that there has to be a measured response to it. Like I said, it's about 5 years ago now that we first got exposed to COVID. And let me say there's still a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder from that. There's a lot of PTSD from the experience of the COVID. So you can bet on people overreacting now. Now we have an overabundance of social media compared to 2020. A lot of people are taking all of advice on social media channels. And that's why I'm happy that media like you, they are doing responsible interviews to let people know that at this time, there is no cause for alarm. People have asked me, can they send their children to school? Should they shut down? Should they go into lockdown? Should they pack their bags and go to Antarctica? No. This is a virus that we know. This is a virus that our immunity has a response for it. There is no cause for alarm as at this time.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Adifolarin Okpawe, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much.
Away from health to politics, Edo State Governor Monday Okpewolo has defended the suspension of 18 elected local government chairmen by the State House of Assembly. Explaining the events that led to the suspension, the governor alleged that the chairmen failed to account for the purpose of contributing 800 million naira monthly to leaders of a certain political party. Okpewolo disclosed this during a meeting with acting local government chairmen at the government house in Benin City, the state capital. Reassuring the acting chairman of his full support, the governor expressed confidence in their ability to deliver services that will drive grassroots development across the state. A state high court sitting in Enugu has issued an interim injunction barring the Apex Igbo social political group, N8BN, from considering the candidacy of former Inspector General of Police Mike Okiro in the January 10 election for the position of President General of the organization. The ruling followed a motion filed by Chimeno Amadi, acting on behalf of the indigenous Igbos of Rivers State. The motion sought to restrain Okiro from contesting, arguing that as an indigene of Imo State, he was ineligible for the position, which is reserved for indigenes of Rivers State. The court upheld the motion, granting an interim injunction on the grounds of Okiro's ineligibility based on his state of origin. This injunction will remain in effect pending the hearing and determination of the motion on notice for interlocutory injunction. Let's also tell you that the lead counsel for Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Aloy Ejimako, has rejected a request by the federal government to set a date for the resumption of his client's trial. Speaking on Tuesday, Ejimako said the developments emphasizing that Kanu remains strong despite his ongoing detention, during which he is allowed 3 visitations weekly. The federal government is prosecuting Kanu on a 7-count charge, including alleged treasonable felony and terrorism. Kanu, who pleaded not guilty, was rearrested in Kenya in 2021 and subsequently extradited to Nigeria. At the most recent court session on September 24, 2024, Kanu asked Justice Binta Nyako to recuse herself from the case, citing a loss of confidence in the courts. Away from that, we tell you that the Plateau State Governor, Caleb Mutfwang, has urged the newly inaugurated chairman and 4 commissioners of the State Civil Service Commission to prioritize visionary leadership in their quest to ensure professionalism and excellence. He said only through this approach can Plateau State realize the aspirations of its people concerning the Civil Service Commission. News Central's Chizobanwe has more in this report.
The gathering of government officials, family and friends under this roof was to witness the swearing-in ceremony of the newly inaugurated commissioners of the Plateau State Civil Service Commission as they prepare to begin their assignments. Represented by his deputy, the governor tasked the commissioners to revitalize and reposition the civil service while addressing issues such as absenteeism and dereliction of duty.
This event reflects our collective commitment to strengthening the backbone of government operations, the civil service, for the advancement of our beloved Plateau State. The civil service remains the engine that drives government policies and programs. Its effective and efficient functioning is key to addressing the needs and aspirations of our citizens.
To lead this commission is Paul Y, who has pledged to uphold the trust placed in him and his team.
God helping us, we will not betray the trust, but we will build on what is already laid down by the government to move the civil service to an envious height.
Stakeholders remain optimistic that the new civil service commissioners will deliver on their mandate.
To me, they are coming with a package that will strengthen the civil service in terms of better innovations, possibly to encourage civil servants to be coming to the office all the time.
They have experiences that we believe that when they bring them up on board, governance on the plateau will take another new dimension for the good of the people of Plateau State.
With the caliber of people that have just been inaugurated as members of the Civil Service Commission, I think Plateau people should expect the best.
Only time will tell how this mandate translates into a more effective and efficient Plateau State. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyuwi.
Clean poverty, about 5,200 rural women across the 44 local government areas of Kano State have received start-up capitals to support their businesses. The Kano State government, while handing the sum of 50,000 naira to each of the beneficiaries at the Coronation Hall of the government house in the state capital, says that its administration will continue to prioritize the empowerment of women at all levels. News Central Simano Bagudu reports.
A routine now becoming more common within Kano State. It's also a show of delight and gratitude for many of these women expected beneficiaries of the state government business support scheme. Top government officials in attendance say that the role of women in nation building cannot be overemphasized. Our mission in the Konkosia movement is to uplift everyone to become equal in the society. Everyone is beyond poverty. Everyone can be governor, everyone can be president, everyone can be council chairman. The Kano State government says that the intervention is part of the government's strategy to boost small and medium-scale enterprises in the state.
We, as a government, reasoned that you stand a higher chance of creating wealth in our society when you are not indebted. We hope you will reciprocate our magnanimity by investing wisely and working hard to break out of the poverty cycle. As your government, whom you have entrusted with your popular mandate, 2023. I will be the happiest person to see that by next year, inshallah, most of you have become employers of labor in your locality through this program.
The state government says that the women will be clustered into cooperative societies so that they can be mentored and effectively trained to gain entrepreneurial skills. In Kano, for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Away from that, in Nigeria's northeast, the Borno state government has announced plans to begin construction of a state-of-the-art rail system as part of its broader infrastructural development initiative. The decision was made during the first Executive Council meeting of 2025, which outlined several key projects aimed at modernizing the state's infrastructure. News Central's Morikirawa completes the reports.
This is the present state of the rail system in Nigeria's state of Borno. The coaches, overgrown by grasses, remain shadow of itself, with the rail lines in most areas a dumping ground.
The Ministry of Transport and Energy is hard at work. This project requires environmental impact assessment. It requires feasibility studies, social impact assessment. It also requires compensation to be paid to, places where, private homes will have to be taken over to build aspects of the, light rail infrastructure. So it requires time, but government is committed to it, and inshallah very soon the Maiduguri urban rail will, be fully functional.
Shortly after the median Executive Council meeting for the year 2025, Borno State Government revealed that the rail project is aimed at improving transportation, boosting commerce, and connecting major urban centers within the state.
When we went to China with His Excellency, last 2 months we were in the Corporation, China Railway Corporation, where we meet the managing director. So we talked about the light rail of the township of Maiduguri. They have already come and assessed the already existing infrastructure, the rail that is lying in Maiduguri from Kaswan Shanu up to Bulunkutu. I think they are going to use the existing rail, then they are going to add new one.
The rail system will link Maiduguri, the state capital, with other key towns and regions in Borno, providing a more efficient means of transportation for both passengers and goods.
Council took decision on the need for street naming and house numbering in Maiduguri and other urban rural locations in Borno State. This came about as a result of the urban renewal of Maiduguri. As you know, Maiduguri is fast developing.
The government says the initiative will involve the systematic naming of streets and the installation of clear standardized signage, which will make navigation easier for residents and visitors as the state recovers from insurgency. In Maiduguri for News Central, Morikirawa.
And I'll tell you that John Mahama has officially been sworn in as Ghana's 14th president, alongside his running mate Jane Nana Akufo-Addo, and in front of other presidents and dignitaries. President Mahama promised to restore Ghana to her past glory by fighting corruption, achieving economic stability, and fostering national unity, including inclusion, amongst other things. News Central's Bernard Akede reports.
The transition is now complete and history has been made. John Dramani Mahama has officially been sworn in as Ghana's 14th president. In a ceremony that was attended by several world leaders, the event had the Vice President, Jane Nana Akufo-Addo, proudly take her oath of office as the country's first female vice president. Then, amidst cheers and celebrations from the crowd at the Black Star Square, the new president took to the stage and swore his oath.
As your next leader, I shall strive to exercise sound judgment and be able to make the right calls at the right time. I will have the humility and presence of mind to take responsibility for any challenges and be willing to act firmly and timelessly to resolve the challenges that we face as a nation.
As for the inaugural speech, the president started by recognizing the guests present and then acknowledging his political opponent, Dr. Mahmudu Bawumia, and the outgoing president, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, who on the same day 8 years ago was sworn in while Mahama was stepping down. While outlining his vision for Ghana's future, the key points of the president's speech included gratitude and commitment to Ghanaians for their trust, pledging that their support would lead to meaningful change, economic recovery and stability. He emphasized plans to restore and stabilize the economy, aiming to create jobs and reduce poverty, business and investment environment. The president assured that Ghana is open for business, promising a more transparent and fair tax regime to stimulate growth. Governance and constitutional reforms. Mahama highlighted the need for governance reforms to enhance transparency and accountability.
The circumstances we find ourselves in are indeed dire, but even so, I'll be decisive and swift in my actions. We'll focus our initial efforts on 4 critical areas. And the first is economic restoration and stabilization of the macroeconomic environment. The second is the improvement of the business and investment environment to ensure that Ghana is once again open for business. The third is governance and constitutional reforms. And the final, but not the least, is accountability and the fight against corruption.
Furthermore, the president spoke on fighting against corruption. He reiterated his commitment to combating corruption, ensuring that public resources are used for the benefits of all citizens. National unity and inclusivity. Mahama called for unity among Ghanaians, urging citizens to work together to build a more prosperous and resilient country. Acknowledgement of predecessors' efforts. Mahama commended the previous administration for its contributions, particularly in economic growth and infrastructural development, and expressed his intent to build upon these achievements. Calls for national reset. He stressed the need for a national reset to restore faith in Ghana's institutions and leadership, encouraging citizens to enter into a covenant to build the Ghana they all desire. The special guest of honor and current ECOWAS chairman Bola Tinubu celebrated with the president, expressing his willingness to further improve relationships between Nigeria and Ghana.
Today, I am here not only as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but also as an African in resolute support of Ghana and our people. This moment is a source of pride and honor for Ghanaians, the entire continent, and its diaspora.
President Mahama's speech, in conclusion, set a tone for hope and determination, focusing on economic revitalization, good governance, and national unity as the pillars of Ghana's future development. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
Away from that, Chad's President Mahamat Idris Deby Itno has accused Emmanuel Macron of France of being in the wrong era following the French president's comment that African nations forgot to appreciate his country's military deployment in the Sahel to combat Islamist insurgencies. France began its military operations in Mali and the Sahel in 2013, targeting insurgent groups. However, its military presence in Africa is being reconfigured after being expelled from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, all governed by juntas hostile to Paris. Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire have also requested the withdrawal of French military bases from their territories.
Je voudrais exprimer mon indignation vis-à-vis des propos tenus récemment par le président Macron qui frise le mépris envers l'Afrique et les Africains. Je crois qu'il se trompe d'époque. Ce qui concerne le Tchad, la décision de mettre fin à l'accord de coopération militaire avec la France est entièrement une décision souveraine du Tchad. Cela ne souffre d'aucune ambiguïté.
From other continents, we tell you that Los Angeles has declared a state of emergency as a wildfire rapidly expanded from 10 to over 2,900 acres within hours, forcing over 30,000 residents to evacuate and threatening 13,000 structures. Fire Chief Christine Crowley confirmed that the blaze broke out on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. in the Pacific Palisades areas. Footage shows homes consumed by flames and residents escaping on foot. Los Angeles County Fire Chief Anthony Marone has warned that the Pacific Palisades remains at high risk. Meanwhile, a second fire has ignited near Altadena, approximately 40 kilometers inland. Millions across California remain under a red flag warning, indicating extreme fire danger as conditions worsen. We also tell you that Taiwan's military has launched a 3-day combat readiness exercise ahead of the Lunar New Year, showcasing its defense capabilities amid rising regional tensions. At an Air Force base in Taichung, the military has demonstrated the installation of missiles onto its indigenous defense fighter jets and highlighted the operational readiness of the Patriot missile defense system. The drills underscore Taiwan's efforts to strengthen its combat capacity as it faces increasing military pressure from Beijing. The exercise comes as Taiwan continues to enhance its defense strategies, emphasizing its preparedness to protect its sovereignty and deter potential threats. This demonstration of military readiness serves as a clear signal of Taiwan's commitment to safeguarding its national security during a critical period.
以本岛以对岸的最近距离来说，其实就是在新竹以台中这一带，而且我们在这一带的部分，其实我们完成起飞之后，其实大概1到2分钟就可以准备到达我们所对应的位置。所以我们过去的话，其实刚才这位媒体朋友提出的3分钟，是对我们来说是绰绰有余的。
军对于所有国防武器装备的采购啊，它有一个优先的顺序。那么目前我们的有4个重点，包含针对不对称战力的一个强化、后备战力的强化，以及我们防卫韧性的一个提升。另外，应对这个所谓的灰色地带袭扰的一个威胁。这目前啊，这4个方向是我们建军的一个重点的方向。
We'll now go on a break. When we return, we'll bring you sports stories. To stay with us. In sports, the Executive Committee of the Nigeria Football Federation has appointed former Mali boss Eric Chelle as the Super Eagles' new coach, with the team struggling in their bid to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. The 47-year-old Chelle led Mali to the quarterfinals of last year's Africa Cup of Nations, losing 2-1 to hosts and eventual winners Ivory Coast after extra time. He actually won 5 caps for Mali, spent the entirety of his playing career in France, and took over as Mali coach in 2022, but was dismissed in June 2024. His primary task is to turn around Nigeria's slow start to World Cup qualifying, with the team winless after 4 games and second from bottom in their 6-team group. Alexander Isak's rich goal-scoring form continued as Newcastle United claimed a 2-0 victory over Arsenal in the first leg of their Carabao Cup semi-final at the Emirates Stadium. Isak scored his 14th goal in 15 games, opening the scoring with a composed finish. Anthony Gordon doubled the lead early in the second half, converting a rebound from Isak's shot. Arsenal came close with Gabriel Martinelli hitting the post and Urian Timber, including William Saliba, missing headers. Newcastle now hold a strong advantage and will reach their second final in 3 years if they avoid defeat or lose by a single goal in the return leg at St. James's Park on February 5. Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. has officially been handed a 2-match suspension following his red card during the game against Valencia. The Brazilian winger shoved a goalkeeper Stol Dimitrivski in the back of the neck after he had been pushed. Spanish champions Real Madrid came from behind to beat Valencia 2-1 on Friday after Vinicius' red card, moving top of the table. Vinicius will miss upcoming league games against La Palmas and Real Valladolid, but is able to play in the Spanish Super Cup this week in Saudi Arabia with Madrid facing Mallorca on Thursday in the semi-finals. Jessica Pegula dropped just 5 games to run past Maria Sakkari at the Adelaide International on Wednesday in a delayed start to her season, days before the Australian Open. The top seed and US Open finalist, who had a bye in the first round, overwhelmed the Greek former world number 3, 6-4, 6-1. The world number 7, who last played at the WTA finals in November, improved her record against Sakkari to 6-5 as the Greek player works her way back from a shoulder injury. Second-seeded fellow American Emma Navarro, ranked 8th in the world, came through a tougher assignment, needing 2 hours to battle past Ekaterina Alexandrova. She will face another Russian, Ludmila Samsonova, for a place in the semi-finals. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, let's look at our top stories again. President Bola Tinubu has returned to Abuja after Yuletide break and Ghana trip. Cybercrime unit of the Nigerian police has recovered 8 billion naira, rated best in Africa. We also told you that Chad says French president in the wrong era over comments to African countries. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Apple TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Likon Onobanjo.